Hey, it's your Player 2 here, and you are watching Chris, the old-ass retro gamer.
What is up, everybody? Chris, the old-ass retro gamer here. A little bit delayed for the episode 76 in my recent Pickups series. This is everything I've added to my physical media collection in the way of video games and movies during the month of April 2023. Yeah, I was going to do this last night. Still kind of got the bronchitis every once in a while. Just talking too much or exhaling a little too much sets it off. But talked about that last week too. I was going to do this last night, but my brother's getting married this upcoming weekend, and I had a bunch of stuff to take care of this weekend to prepare, so kind of didn't make sense to do it last night. So I just decided to delay it one evening, and here we are. So it's kind of a light month because at the beginning of April was the Midwest Gaming Classic. So I had saved up a bunch of money for that, and surprisingly did not blow my wad. I brought quite a lot of money with me, and I still had quite a lot left over when all was said and done. But thing is, I did buy a lot of stuff this month. Quite a lot. Most of it hasn't shown up yet for some reason. Like, why does it take 2 weeks to ship something that you say is already in stock? I don't know, but that's the kind of thing that's going on. So I'm assuming May is going to be pretty packed with awesomeness. This month, not so much. Like I said, about half the things that I bought have not shown up yet. So probably have some action figures to talk about next month, or now it's this month, at the end of this month. Definitely a lot of video games and movies. So didn't really have any video game adjacent stuff to talk about tonight. I did buy some miniatures for my D&D campaign, but they're not painted, and they're kind of like they came in pieces because they were 3D printed. So I still got to like glue them together and all that kind of stuff. So that I'm not going to show off. But I do have more movies than games, but the stacks are very small for each. So let's just get right into it. So I do have a DVD that I purchased. I replaced a DVD of mine with a Blu-ray from Australia. And I only have like a specific shelf that is just like, It's a specific width, and it just fits enough all the DVDs that I have. So I wasn't looking for something to fill the space of the one that I'm replacing. Just so happens that I was like, you know what? There's that one thing I haven't seen in forever, which I remember really, really enjoying. Let me see if it's available on home video, because I do remember renting. It was probably on VHS, maybe DVD, when I first saw it. And sure enough, not available on Blu-ray, not available on 4K. It is available on DVD, and it was really cheap. So I was like, well, I guess I'm replacing the DVD that I just got rid of with this one, and that is The Station Agent. So it's like a drama that I saw when it first came out on home video, and it's the first time I ever saw Peter Dinklage in anything. He's the lead character, or the lead actor in this. He basically is like this really shy, awkward guy who works in like a model train shop. The guy that runs the shop, that owns the shop, dies. And in his will leaves him like this like train station in the middle of nowhere, like in the middle of New Jersey. So he decides to move into it, and he makes a couple of friends while he's there. One of them is this older woman who is like mourning the death of her child. Was it her child or her husband? It's been a while. It was either her child or her husband. She's like still kind of in mourning, and he befriends her. And then there's also this really super talkative dude who runs a coffee food truck and just will not leave Peter Dinklage's character alone. So he kind of makes him come out of his shell a little bit. It's really, really good. It's a little bit funny, but it's mostly all about the drama. It's mostly these three people kind of making like a little weird family unit. And it's really, really good. It's well written, definitely well acted. I never heard of Bobby Cannavale before this, but he's in it, and it's Peter Dinklage, Bobby Cannavale, and Patricia Clarkson, who I'd seen in plenty of things over the years. This is the first time where I was like, she's actually really good. So, yeah, I definitely recommend checking it out if you haven't seen it. If you like Peter Dinklage, haven't seen him in something, this is probably the first thing I remember ever seeing him in. So, there's that. And now we're going to get into that Blu-ray. So, I've purchased the second film in this series on 4K. This first one in the series is weird because I saw it on Tubi for free. I don't think it ever really been on home video or something like that. I don't know. And all of a sudden, because of the popularity of the second one, everyone's like clamoring to like release this movie on home video. And we're talking the original Terrifier. So Terrifier 2, I have purchased on 4K, like I said, and I have like, it turned out I have like the exclusive Best Buy slipcover for it and all that kind of stuff. But I think two different companies have released this on home video. I decided to go with the release by Umbrella, which is an Australian company. This is region free. It will play on my PlayStation 5 and my Xbox One. Anything that's a Blu-ray player, it'll play. But the reason I picked this one is it comes with a bonus movie as an extra. You can see it right there. It comes with All Hallows Eve, which is an anthology horror movie directed by the same person who directed all these Terrifier movies. What's his name? Damien Leone. And it's the first appearance of Art the Clown, the character from these movies. And he's in one of the stories. And that's what kicked off the whole Terrifier series, was that character seemed to resonate with him, and he just decided to keep running with it. And it's proved to be extremely popular. And I've never seen All Hallows Eve, so that was one of the reasons why I wanted to pick this up. The other is I have part 2, might as well have part 1, even though I think part 2 is definitely way better than this one is, because this one has zero story, zero plot. It is just gore scene after gore scene, and there is some horrific stuff going on in this movie. Like, I was like, who came up with this? Like, sawing somebody in half, not like horizontally, we're talking vertically, but starting at the crotch. And while the person is hanging upside down, and just sawing them with a handsaw while someone watches. It is gross as hell. But, you know, I like a good horror movie. I like a good gore fest every once in a while, make me feel icky. But yeah, I had to pick this one up. And it was really cheap too. I mean, this Umbrella place, like, even though you're buying from a completely different country, yeah, you're paying a little bit more for shipping because it's coming from, you know, Australia. The product itself is actually kind of cheap. I want to say I paid like $15 for that. The movie that I replaced on DVD I've been holding out for this for years. So I watched this movie really late. I watched this movie, I think the first time I saw it was in the early 2000s. A friend of mine was like, "What? You've never seen this movie before? What is wrong with you?" So he showed it to me and I was like, "Yeah, that was actually pretty cool. I'm surprised. I mean, I've heard of it, but I've just never thought of watching it. Like it just never occurred to me." And it became one of my like an instant favorite of mine. Like I watched it a lot. Only problem was at that point in time, DVD was the thing. I owned the movie on DVD. Then a Blu-ray came out, but for some reason the director decided to pull a George Lucas on it and completely revamp the movie. He was like, "Oh no, when I made the movie, I didn't have the budget to do it the way I wanted because I wanted it to be kind of like a comic book type of thing." So he decided to put like all these comic book transitions into the movie with CGI. And like now it has like this opening prologue that is just stupid and it ruins the movie for me. There's a group of characters that get introduced in this movie, and their introduction in the original version is pretty cool. The way they change it up with these comic book transitions now ruins it completely. And when I saw it for the first time, I was just kind of like, "This is some bullshit. This is like some Star Wars level bullshit where we're just not needed. The movie was fine the way it was. Why did you do this? Because someone threw some extra money at you. That's why." So I refused to own anything that had that director's cut revisionist version of the movie on it ever. So it's on 4K. The movie's available on 4K. It's that director's cut. The movie's available on Blu-ray. It's only that director's cut. They have never remastered the movie in HD or 4K in the original theatrical version until now. So Imprint, which is a British, I do believe, British or Imprint slash Viavision or Viavision. They're a British boutique company when it comes to movies and all that. And they released like a big box set that had like a whole bunch of extras with it for this movie. But I was like, I'm not that into it. Just give me the standard version. I'm talking about The Warriors. So yeah, this is the theatrical version and the stupid ass director's cut director's cut. So you got two discs. You got one that has, you can see it's the theatrical version, and then the second disc here is this worthless director's cut, which I'm guaranteeing will never get put inside anything disc based in my house ever. I've been waiting for this for years. The day that it showed up, I popped it in and I watched it, and I'm like, yes, yes, yes. If you've never seen The Warriors, it's like this dystopian thing where it takes place in New York. Every like neighborhood has a gang associated with it. So you got Coney Island, and the Warriors are from Coney Island. They're the gang from there. There's ones from Brooklyn. There's ones from, every little barrio area, not like barrio, but like, you know what I mean? Like little neighborhoody, sections of streets or whatever. And there is like this huge gang that's from, I think it's from like New York, that calls all these gangs together and says, "Hey, if you think about it and you put all of us, all the members of every gang in New York State together, we outnumber the cops like 10-1, and we could run this goddamn thing. So let's put everything aside and let's run shit." But then one of the gangs decides to assassinate him while he's there in front of everybody, and then the Warriors get blamed, and it's all about the Warriors running from that meeting, trying to get back home to Coney Island without getting killed by everyone else, because once they get blamed, like every single gang is like, they ruined it for everybody. Let's go kill them. And it's great. John Wick 4 copied stuff right out of this movie, like directly. There's a radio station where a lot of the gangs are getting their information from. And the DJ that is on the air, all you ever see is her mouth and the microphone. And they copied that shot exactly in John Wick 4. Because the DJ in here, whenever she's saying like, "Hey, there's a sighting of the Warriors over on this street," she goes, "Hey, boppers, there's the Warriors, have been seen on this street and this street. Go get them." And then in John Wick 4, they do the exact same shot, and she starts talking to the other assassins. The DJ in that movie talks to the other assassins by referring to them as boppers. She's like, hey, boppers, a certain someone was seen on this street by, the Arc de Triomphe. Go get them kind of stuff. And the same song, too. They even play it in Nowhere to Run in this movie and in John Wick 4 when the scene starts, when the action scene starts, which is kind of awesome that this movie was so influential, like they had to copy it in John Wick 4. It's a fantastic movie. Started a lot of like the slow motion action-y things. Whenever one of the characters is like during an action scene does something like really cool, they do like a slow-mo shot of it, like someone throws a baseball bat like a boomerang kind of thing, and you see it happening in slow motion and whacking somebody. It's pretty cool the way it works. But I really enjoyed it. It's a fun movie. And I'm glad to finally have the theatrical cut in high def. There's these. If anyone from the 80s or 90s ever went to the video stores, you look at the science fiction and horror section, you'd always see movies from Vestron Video. Well, Vestron hasn't been a thing for a long time. They decided to make a comeback, or somebody decided to bring them back by buying their back catalog and releasing all of these Vestron Video Collector Series movies that you would have seen from them back in the day, and remastering them in high def. And I bought 2 more of them. I have a few already, but I bought 2 more. One of them is The Wraith, which is starring Charlie Sheen and Sherilyn Fenn. And it's got a bunch of people who like were not really stars then, who are stars now. Like, it was one of Charlie Sheen's first movies, Randy Quaid. Sherilyn Fenn it's a PG-13 movie. Sherilyn Fenn gets butt-ass naked in this. I'm trying to think who else. Clint Howard is in it. But it's like a science fiction teen action movie. It's like this Arizona town, and there's like this group of like car thieves that like dropped out of high school who keep on doing like those illegal races for pink slips. And if you don't pay up, they will kill you. Hey, what's up, Davey? How's it going? One of the people that they killed comes back as a ghost, as a wraith, in this souped up car. I think it's a Ford. It's supposed to be like a revenge car from hell, but it's licensed by Ford. It says it on there. They show it. It's Ford or Nissan or something like that. I don't remember. And he starts offing all the people that were involved in these pink slip races. And it's pretty cool. Jeremiah, my co-host on my podcast, The Movie Is Starting, and I watched this for our pilot episode of the podcast. So it kind of has like a cool sentimental meaning for me. So I had to get it. And it was dirt cheap too. So why not? It's pretty fun. It's definitely 80s cheese. It has a great soundtrack. It has like Ozzy Osbourne and like AC/DC and stuff like that on there. It's pretty cool. And the other one, but these are all, the other thing is these are numbered. They have like numbered releases. So this one is, out of all the movies that they've released so far in this series, this is number 20. You can obviously see it up there. And the next one is number 17, and that is Maximum Overdrive. This is another movie that I watched on my podcast with Jeremiah, with our guest, Arcangelo Crelensia, who's the comic book artist working with Jeremiah on his Ashes comic book. And this is based on a Stephen King story called Trucks, where like a comet passes by Earth and anything mechanical becomes sentient. The podcast is called Shh, the Movie Is Starting. It's on Podomatic, but it's also on every major like podcast download site, like iTunes and all that kind of stuff, Spotify. But it's a commentary track to a movie. We record a commentary track to a movie that our guest wants to watch. So yeah, anything that's mechanical, like cars, lawnmowers, go-karts, soda machines, become alive and just start killing everybody. What's up, VGM? How's it going? You got one of these pretty early. Yeah, I'm glad you're here. It's very cheesy. Stephen King not only wrote the story that this is based on, he also directed it. But it should not say directed by Stephen King. It should say directed by cocaine, because this is one of the most coked out things you'll ever see in your life. And he has admitted that he was basically high the whole time. There is a scene where a guy gets killed by a soda machine, like it shoots the cans at the guy so hard that it cracks his skull. And about 3 seconds later, you actually watch a little kid running away from a steamroller get rolled over and crushed. It is nuts. A dog gets killed by a remote control car, gets jammed in his mouth, and the dog dies. It is crazy. It's a really fun movie. It is super cheesy. Like, the big bad in the movie is this sex toy car that has a Green Goblin head on the front. It's about a bunch of people who are at this like truck stop on the highway, and all of the trucks that are running out of gas that are now alive come to the truck stop to get gassed up, but the humans won't do anything that they want. And it's kind of like they start getting killed one by one. There is a scene in here that stars Giancarlo Esposito. You know, he plays Moff Gideon on The Mandalorian, and he played Gus on Breaking Bad. It was one of his first movie roles in here, and he's in the arcade at the truck stop, and all the arcade machines come to life when the comet passes by, and he's looking at them all confused, and one of them kind of buzzes at him, and he goes, "Yo mama!" It is so funny. But it stars Emilio Estevez and Yeardley Smith, who voices Lisa Simpson. She's in it too. It's silly. It's funny. I wouldn't say it's like gory, but it's violent, but it's kind of funny because it's so silly. But I've always enjoyed it. We talk about silly. Next up, we got Top Secret. I think this is Val Kilmer's first movie. This was made by the people who made the Airplane movies. Well, the first Airplane movie and Kentucky Fried movie. It's a parody of James Bond movies and Elvis movies. My parents saw this before I did, and they told me, like, you have to see it. If you like Airplane, you're going to love this. So, like I said, it makes fun of like James Bond movies, Nazi movies from like the 60s, like The Great Escape kind of stuff. There's even a Great Escape joke in here. And like Elvis musicals. And Val Kilmer, we all know, can sing. So there's about like 5 music numbers in here by Val Kilmer. It is pretty funny. Basically, Val Kilmer plays like this Elvis-style rock star who is being sent to Nazi Germany to perform. And he gets caught up in this like spy plot with this like French resistance. And it's really funny. It's got a lot of stupid like sight gags and wordplay jokes, just like Airplane. A lot of boob jokes too. You can see there's one right in the back where some girl who was like laying down in the sand, when she leans up, you can see there's 2 holes where her breasts were in the sand. But it's pretty funny. It's not as good as Airplane, but it's still pretty funny. I really enjoy it. That's like one of those movies I put on when I want to be cheered up by something. That movie makes me just laugh. Which one are you talking about, VGM? I think David, were you talking about Maximum Overdrive? Okay, so that's it for the DVDs. Now we're on to the Blu-rays. I upgraded. No, now did I say what I think I said? We're done with the Blu-rays. Now we're on to the 4Ks. I upgraded my copy of Train to Busan, which is a South Korean zombie movie, which I really enjoyed. I was being told by everybody, you need to watch it. You know, it's pretty awesome. Jeremiah, I remember telling me that I needed to see it for my podcast. And I remember I went on to Amazon Prime one night when I was bored, and I saw that it was streaming on Amazon Prime. So I'm like, okay, let's do this. And holy shit, did this movie put me through the emotional ringer. Basically, it's like a father and a daughter going on a trip on a train, and everyone on the train ends up becoming infected by zombies, and it's like them trying to survive. And it's pretty good. It goes some really nasty places, but like the ending really got me like emotionally. So it's pretty good. Yeah, the one directed by Cocaine. Oh God, there's even Stephen King in Maximum Overdrive. Stephen King's in the opening of the movie when the comet first passes over. He goes to a cash machine to get some money, and the camera's like right up in Stephen King's face. It's supposed to be like the security camera. And he types in his code, and it goes, "You're an asshole." And he's like, "Honey," he's talking to his wife behind him. He's like, "Honey, this machine called me an asshole." I'm like, that was Cocaine talking. Yeah, it's really good. Just do not watch the spinoff that they did. It's like Train to Busan. Train to Busan presents Peninsula. It's basically a Fast and the Furious movie with zombies. It's terrible. Terrible. Don't do it. Speaking of Stephen King, he was pretty popular in the early 80s. Like, there was every 3 weeks, I think, a movie based on a Stephen King book was coming out, because Carrie was a huge hit. I'm trying to think. The Shining was a huge hit. So everyone was licensing his books and turning them into movies. Like I said, every couple of months you had a new one. And one of them I found available on 4K, not available in the US. This was available, I think, in the UK only, is Cat's Eye. And this was one that I used to watch on cable all the time when I was a kid, because this is one of the few Stephen King movies that's rated PG-13. So it was kind of kid-friendly, so it was available to be played on cable like during the day and not just after 7 p.m. But this is an anthology movie. Drew Barrymore is the thread that connects all of them. She plays multiple characters in the movie, but it's all about this like stray cat who keeps on seeing this vision of Drew Barrymore saying, "You need to come and find me. You need to save me." And it's about like the people that the cat comes across on its travels. So the first person it comes across is James Woods. It's really fun. James Woods, who's trying to quit smoking. The cat gets taken by the company that James Woods goes to quit smoking. That's going to make him quit smoking. The cat gets taken by them to use as a training tool, let's say, because it turns out the company that's going to teach him or going to get him to quit smoking employs some very nasty methods to make you do it, like spying on you, making sure you never take a smoke. If it does, we'll kidnap your wife and electrocute her, kind of thing. And they use the cat as like one of the examples of, if we catch you smoking after you sign this contract, this is what's going to happen to your wife, kind of thing. We might do some awful things to your wife if we catch you again. We might do some awful things to your daughter. And his daughter is Drew Barrymore, but not the one that was calling the cat. Cat moves on from that story into this one that's in like Reno or something, where one dude who owes a bunch of money to a gangster. The gangster tells him, "You need to walk around the ledge on the hotel that I live in. That's like 30 stories up. You need to make your way all around the ledge, all the way around the building and back here. And if you do, I'll give you some money, and you can have," like, I guess he was also cheating with the gangster's wife. He's like, "You can have my wife, and you can have a bunch of money, and I'll leave you alone for the rest of your life." And it's about how this guy is trying to like traverse this, teeny little ledge and not fall to his death. The cat gets picked up by the gangster and is like living in his apartment at that point in time. And then the final story is when the cat finds Drew Barrymore, the girl that's been calling him, because there's this little troll living in her wall that wants to steal her breath, and the cat has to kill it. It's really cheesy. It's very 80s. For some reason, they couldn't afford to get the songs that they wanted for the movie. So instead of licensing the real song, they just did covers of them. So in order to bring home the whole thing about the cigarette smoking company, or the Quitters company, creeping on James Woods, you wanted to use what was it called? Every Breath You Take by the Police. But they have this terrible cover that they use, and it is like distracting as all hell. But it's silly, it's cheesy, but it's fun. It's really fun. The stories are all well written and performed. There's a lot of really good actors. You got Drew Barrymore, obviously, who was just in Firestarter, I think the year before this came out, which is another Stephen King movie. James Woods is in it. We're talking about Airplane before. Robert Hayes, who was in Airplane, is the guy that has to walk the ledge. Kenneth McMillan is in this. He was the Baron Harkonnen in the original 1980s Dune movie. Candy Clark, I think she was nominated for an Oscar for something, was in this. It's really good. It was a movie that I used to watch all the time as a kid. It has some great makeup work and all that. I highly recommend checking it out if you haven't. And it's a lot of fun. What else we got here? Also picked up Escape from LA, upgraded my copy from the Blu-ray to the 4K because I love John Carpenter, so I had to have this. And it's a sequel to Escape from New York. Not nearly as good as Escape from New York, but I think it's aged better than Escape from New York has, but Escape from New York I think is more fun. So this was made in like 96, like 15 years after the original movie. And it's making fun of LA culture. So in the original movie, Manhattan Island had been cordoned off and turned into a prison where everyone that's non-desirable in society gets thrown. And the president crashes in his plane. The president of the United States, his plane crashes there, and Kurt Russell's character, Snake Plissken, is the person who's hired to bring him home, to go and to infiltrate and bring the president back alive. In this one, there's been a giant earthquake, and California has been removed from the United States. The earthquake separated it. and it's been cordoned off now and is now the new prison. And the president's daughter, who is like this rebellious teenage girl, steals this device that controls an EMP weapon that'll basically turn the entire Earth. It'll put it back in the Dark Ages. She steals it to go to LA to be with the main gang leader who runs the island now, because she met him online, basically. It was before that was a thing. They met online and they fell in love, and she went there to be with him and stole this thing because her boyfriend is, a terrorist, essentially. And Snake Plissken's brought in to go and get her and bring that device back. It's the exact same plot, a little bit different, but now it's updated with, better special effects and a different kind of commentary. That one, the first movie was dead serious. This one is very tongue-in-cheek, but it makes fun of, like, plastic surgery nightmares in Beverly Hills, and I'm trying to think what else. It's been a while since I've seen, like, the surfing culture and all this kind of stuff. It makes fun of everything in LA. Some of it's successful, some of it really isn't, but I think it's a lot of fun. Special effects in this movie are terrible. I think it's because the people that they hired to do the special effects hadn't really done effects like this before and didn't know how to pull it off, and it shows. It looks god-awful. But Kurt Russell kicks all kinds of ass as Snake Plissken. It's one of my favorite characters he's ever played. I wish we got more movies in this series, but this one kind of bombed, probably because it was 15 years too late. But it's fun, and it's entertaining, and John Carpenter directed, and John Carpenter is one of my favorite directors of all time, so absolutely had to have that. Next up are some weird ones. So I'm not a huge fan of these movies, but I figured on 4K would be where they would shine, so I decided to fork up the money and buy them. One of them I enjoy because it's so terrible. I kind of like it. The other one is one that I think is very overhyped. So we'll talk about the one that I enjoy first. These are movies by Dario Argento, an Italian horror movie director who has gained notoriety in the late 70s and early 80s. And one of the movies he made in the mid 80s is this movie called Phenomena. In the US, this got renamed Creepers. And you might recognize the girl on the front. That is Jennifer frickin' Connelly. Yep, Jennifer Connelly, Oscar winner. She did this before she did Labyrinth. So she's like 14 or 15 in here. She's not good. She's not good in Labyrinth either. But so this movie is just absolute bonkers. So she plays the daughter of a really popular actor who gets sent to, is it England? I want to say it's England. She's in England to go to some sort of a boarding school while her dad is working in the country. And turns out she has this ability to control insects. She's kind of like Snow White for bugs. They like her. She's always someone freaks out because a bee is buzzing around in the car one day, and she's like, "Oh no, it's fine." And she catches it and lets it crawl around in her hand. And she's like, "I've never been stung by a bee before. They like me." She can control insects like you wouldn't believe. At the same time, there's a serial killer going around killing young women, and I think some men. Donald Pleasance is in here, and he plays a scientist who is using insects to try to figure out when the person was killed, which is dumb. And he has this monkey, this little chimpanzee that is his helper because he's paralyzed from the waist down. He doesn't have the use of his legs. And it's the thing about Dario Argento's movies that always get me is when there's horror stuff going on, it is usually super graphic and well photographed and disturbing, but everything else is just really boring melodrama kind of crap, like soap opera stuff. So all the stuff that has to do with Jennifer Connelly's character being in school is boring as all hell, horribly written, horribly acted, but all the horror stuff is really cool, kind of funny at times. And the ending it just goes completely off the rails. The ending is one of the craziest freaking things you will ever see in your life because of who the killer ends up being and how the killer gets taken out is one of the weirdest, most bonkers things you'll ever see in your life. And I kind of love it. This has how many different versions? It has the original Italian version on one disc in 4K and the international version and the Creepers, which is the US version, on another 4K or 4K disc. So it has 3 versions of the movie in here, and that's crazy. I've only watched the original Italian version, which is, I'm guaranteeing, the best. And then the other movie that he did is the one that he's the most well known for, and that is Suspiria. This is the one that I think is kind of overrated because it has the same problems that Phenomena has, where when it's doing the horror slasher thing, it's great. The lighting in this movie is fantastic, and it really stands out in this 4K. It is super bright and vivid. It's shot extremely well. It's nasty. But everything else that's just like the stuff that happens in between is just so boring and hokey and badly acted and written. Like, it's like, can we just, I mean, it's horrible to say that. It's like, can we just watch someone else get killed now, please? Because this sucks. But this is about this young girl who comes to Germany to attend this really prestigious like dance academy. And while she's there, she finds out that the place is run by a coven of witches. And there's 3 witches that are going to like destroy the world or something, or take over the world, and one of them resides in this dance academy, and that girl has taken it upon herself to figure out what's going on because there's murders going on all over the place, dogs randomly ripping their owners' throats out. It's crazy. There's some bizarre ass like kill scenes in here, but they look great. They're filmed extremely well and they're colorful and everything. It's great. It's just everything else around it I think is kind of crappy. But I will say it does look fantastic in 4K. I absolutely loved it. I watched it and I was like, yeah, this still isn't really the greatest thing ever, as like some people make it out to be, but it looks fantastic. So this is probably going to be one of those movies that I use as like a demo for what 4K should look like. It looks fantastic. Next up is a silly one. We've got Wanted. It's weird that like Shout Factory, well, Scream Factory / Shout Factory, they license the weirdest movies sometimes to release, and like this is like not something they normally would do. I'm surprised Universal did not release this themselves, but whatever. Scream Factory did. No, Shout Factory did. Sorry, that's the non-horror wing, and it's based on a comic book by I think Mark Miller, and it's about like this kid who finds out that his dad is the greatest assassin in the history of the world. And that he's kind of inherited his dad's gifts, at least in the comic book. In the comic book, there's like super villains and like there's like super villain, like people that look like X-Men and stuff running around and all that kind of stuff. Not in the movie. In the movie, they kind of grounded it, where the kid finds out that his dad was a super assassin, and he's being taught how to be an assassin just like him. And then there's like twists and turns about who's being manipulated by who and what's really going on. But the thing this movie's the most well known for is the whole curving of the bullet thing, where like these assassins are so good, if you like flick your wrist at the time you pull the trigger, you can curve the bullet around things, and it's absolutely nuts. I have the comic book. The comic book is cool. The movie is not a whole lot like the comic book, but it had enough similarities that I kind of enjoy it. It's a fun movie. It's visually pretty awesome. It's directed by Timur Bekmambetov, who is this Russian director who did these movies called Night Watch and Day Watch, which were like insane visual stuff. And this is like the first American movie that he made. He ended up doing Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter. And I think it's pretty cool. I think it's entertaining. I watched this the day it showed up because I haven't seen it since the theater. And it's still pretty fun. It's got Angelina Jolie and James McAvoy and Morgan Freeman. Morgan Freeman doing this "kill this motherfucker right here" line cracks me up every time. The transfer is actually pretty good. It has all the grain and everything, and it looks fantastic. It looks like a brand new movie that was shot like, last week. So I highly recommend that. And it's dirt cheap. Usually the ones released through Shout Factory are the cheaper ones. So now we got the big box sets on 4K. And the big one, I pre-ordered it the moment this went up on sale because me. That is the Star Trek The Next Generation 4-movie collection. I have the original series movie collection also. This one is a little bit thinner because they only made 4 movies instead of 6 like with the original cast. But it does have the Blu-ray and 4K versions of every movie in this box set here. And I've watched 2 of the 4, and they look amazing. I've watched these multiple times on streaming services. Right now, HBO Max, for some reason, has the Star Trek Next Generation movies. Paramount Plus still has the original cast movies. Why Paramount Plus sold them off to HBO makes no sense to me since they are Paramount films. But whatever. I've watched those multiple times, so I was actually very familiar with how they looked, and I was wondering how they would look on physical media, and they look 10 times better here because you don't have any of the streaming artifacts and all that. So when it comes to the movies, you've got Star Trek Generations, which was the passing of the torch movie where Kirk meets Picard. I'm not a fan of that one. I used to love it when it came out in theaters, and I'm such a huge Star Trek fan. This is going to sound weird, but I was such a huge Star Trek fan when Generations came out. I saw it 7 times in the theater. I was just so stoked that we had a Next Generation movie, and it had a lot of action in it and all this kind of stuff. Now I watch it and I groan because I'm like, well, was I really that not like, I don't know how to describe it, like in denial about how bad I thought that story was. That story I don't think is good at all now. It's just really silly. The whole idea of the Nexus is dumb as far as I'm concerned. And I just wish they made a straight Next Generation movie instead of having this pass the torch crap in there, because I think that's what kind of ruins the movie. It's not exactly the Next Generation's movie. It's kind of half and half. And neither half is very good. But it looks great. And I watched, it also has First Contact on here, which is the one everybody seems to love. I like it. I don't like the Borg Queen. I've never liked the idea of the Borg Queen. I thought it ruined the Borg. But the movie looks absolutely amazing here. And then there's Insurrection, which I started to watch, but I had to turn it off because I had something going on. It looks fantastic when it's the actors and all that. When it comes to the special effects, because the Insurrection was the first movie in the franchise where it was nothing but CGI effects, and the company they used was not their normal company. It was some new company called like Blue Sky or something instead of ILM. And in 4K, they look really bad, like really bad. And I was just kind of like, oh, yeah, okay, I'll watch this later. And then Nemesis, which everybody seems to hate, is my favorite of the 4. I really like stories where people see the dark side of themselves or see like the what-if version of themselves. And you get to see that with Shinzon and Picard, because Shinzon is this clone of Picard. I love that. And then you also get to see it with Data, like with his other brother, B4. And he's seen it multiple times before with Lore. I love those kind of stories, and this one has, I think, the most action out of all of them. The last, 40 minutes of the movie is like a gigantic, starship battle, and it's kind of awesome. And plus, certain characters go away forever, sort of. And I like that movie so much that I wrote a screenplay sequel to it, because the tagline for Nemesis when it came out theatrically was, "A generation's final journey begins." That was because there was supposed to still be 2 more movies. So I was like, okay, well, what if a generation's final journey continues? And then I was going to write another movie after that, another script after that called, where the tagline is "A generation's final journey ends." And everyone seems to like the screenplay, but I love Nemesis. I think it's a fantastic movie that I wish was not butchered in the editing room, because all the deleted scenes that are on the discs need to be in that movie because they make things make more sense. But even without them, I still think the movie's really fun. So I had to have that. I have not watched the Blu-rays. I've just, like I said, 4Ks. I also picked this up. I saw this pop up on my Amazon account. It showed up as people who have bought this have also bought this. And I was like, oh, that I must have. And we're talking Police Story 3 Super Cop on 4K. First Jackie Chan movie I own in 4K, and this is also probably my favorite Jackie Chan movie. Back in the 90s when Mortal Kombat came out, New Line Cinema was like, hey, martial arts movies seem to be pretty popular now because of Mortal Kombat. Let's, license some of these Jackie Chan movies that are in Hong Kong and just give them a real quick dub and re-release them in theaters and see what happens. And Rumble in the Bronx was the first one, and that became a huge hit. And then one that came out after that was Super Cop. It was just retitled Super Cop for the US, but it's really Police Story 3 Super Cop, and it's fantastic. Also stars Michelle Yeoh, who now has an Oscar. I watched this the other day. It has multiple cuts on it also. It has the original Chinese, or the original Hong Kong version with the original language track, because I have seen this before. I rented a Laserdisc, and it was in Mandarin or something, and none of the word, the dialogue matched up with the mouths because it was redubbed in Mandarin. But there was extra scenes where you see Jackie Chan walk out, or they walk up to this restaurant about halfway through the movie, and there's a bunch of dogs and cats in cages that are getting ready to be cooked at this restaurant, and Jackie Chan says something like, oh, this shit should be banned or something like that. But it's like, yeah, gross. But that's in the Hong Kong version, which is the one that I watched, and it also has the Super Cop version, which is the one that we got over here in the States that was re-edited and redubbed by the Weinsteins from Dimension. It looks fantastic. It's nothing but nonstop action. It is crazy. Jackie Chan gets hit by a train. Michelle Yeoh drives a motorcycle and bounces it off of a train. Almost got run over in the streets. It's nuts. But it's also super, super fun. I might be having more Jackie Chan things show up next month or this month. So you might have to wait and see some cool stuff coming this month. And the last movie I have, the last 4K big box thing I bought is the original Dawn of the Dead. This came out. Who released this? Second Sight Films. I think they're in England also. They released like a big limited edition set of this that was going for a ton of money. But then eventually they just like made this regular edition. But it has all the different cuts in 4K on it. So you've got the theatrical cut, which we got over here, new 4K scan. Disc 2 is the extended cut 4K scan. Disc 3 is the Dario Argento cut, because Dario Argento was friends with George Romero, and Dario Argento licensed the movie to release in Italy, and he recut the movie from like the 2 some hours that long that it, the length of it is like over 2 hours. He cut it down to like 90 minutes. And because that was so popular, we got all those zombie movies. Because this was renamed Zombie, even though it's a second movie in a series in the U.S., this was like it was renamed Zombie and was now considered like the first part in the series, because then there was Zombie 2, 3, 4, and 5 that came out after it, which were awful. And then we got... Oh, yeah, those are 3 cuts. It's the theatrical cut, the extended cut, and the Argento cut. And then there's another Blu-ray that is just nothing but extras. It is tons and tons of extras down here. And I haven't opened it yet. I need to watch it. It's a long movie, so I need to set aside some time in order to do so. So maybe next weekend. This weekend, my brother's getting married, so I really can't. But maybe I'll put it on tonight. We'll see. I need to watch it again. It's a great movie. Love it. Absolutely one of my favorite zombie movies ever. Okay, so that's it for movies. Now we're on to the games. And man, I got like... Even though I don't have a lot of games to talk about, they go from like some of the oldest stuff to some of the newest stuff. To like one of the games was just released this week to something that was probably released in like 1981. So we're going from oldest to newest. So I've been on an Atari 2600 kick lately, and I decided that I'm going to set a new goal since I've already finished my Dreamcast set. I'm going to try to get all these games by Imagic on the 2600. They were probably my favorite developer for the 2600 back in the day. And I have a bunch of their games already. Most of them were the ones that I had as a kid, and I've gotten some new ones that I never had either. Or also, and one of the ones I never had, I found at my new local retro shop. That is called Trick Shot. And as you can tell, it's a pool game. But I don't care. I like a good pool game. This one, it looks like, has multiple modes. Looks like you can just do 3 balls. You can probably do all 9. Doesn't say. 1 or 2 players, novice, hustlers, and trick shot artists. Match play gives you the games of mini pool, 3 object balls, English billiards. Your cue is your joystick. Your finesse controls. Yeah, blah, 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 yeah, whatever. So it's got 2 different versions of the game on there. Whatever. I don't care. If it could be the worst pool game ever. It's an Imagic game. I love their artwork, the way it's all metallic, silver, and all that, and the way that the game is like in a tray. They have to pull out the bottom here, and the cartridge itself is like, metallic. I love Imagic. So yeah, the new goal is to try to get all these Imagic games that are available. Some of them are pretty expensive. There's at least 2 that are kind of pricey. So, what's up, Retro Coop? And the other Atari game I picked up at that store at the same time is one that I always hear about. I think I heard John Hancock talking about this at one point, but it's called Frogs and Flies. It's by M Network, which was Mattel. This was originally, I do believe, an Intellivision game, and it got ported over to the 2600. And it's basically, you have 2 lily pads, and you play as a frog that is hopping between the two. And as you are hopping, there are flies in the air, and you can eat them as you go. And if you're playing 2-player, it's a competition. Who can eat the most flies? Very simple, as most Atari 2600 games are, but I had to have it. Never had this one back in the day, but I hear about it all the time. So I saw it there dirt cheap, so I picked it up. When I got those for like $10 each. So it depends on the game, really. But obviously Trick Shot, the pool game, is probably not in high demand. But one of the other Magic games that I was looking for was going for like $300, $400 in the box. So yeah, I guess it really just depends on the game. Next up, I have a Genesis game. I was looking for this at the Midwest Gaming Classic, and I found it not once but twice. And the first time I was like, okay, I'll come back and pick you up later. And went around the rest of the convention hall or the vendor's hall, found another copy for $5 more. And I was like, okay, if that's the only other copy I've seen of this game, I'm just going to go back to that other vendor and pick up the cheaper one. And when I got there, I didn't notice the first time that the reason it was $5 cheaper than the other guy was selling it was because it didn't have a manual. And I got to have my manuals. So went back to the other place and it was gone. It had been sold. So I kind of missed out. So the thing is, when I came back from the Midwest Gaming Classic, I went looking for a copy and I found one online for pretty much the exact same price that the manual-less version that I saw at the convention was going for. So I wasn't too sad about it. We're talking Atomic Runner on the Genesis, and it's like a platformer that I watched Captain Algebra. I think he streamed it, or I watched somebody stream. I think I saw him streaming it, and it looked pretty fun, so I had to pick up a copy of it. You really can't tell what's going on, but your character's actually kind of tiny on the screen, which leaves you all that room to do your platforming, which is kind of awesome. And even the Statue of Liberté up there. So I wanted to get this for a long time. It was always too expensive. I even found a copy of this when we all went game hunting in Wisconsin last summer, but it didn't have a manual then either, so I passed on it. So, yeah. When I was at the retro, a lot of these are the ones that I got at that retro store, Video Games Then and Now by me. And I found these 3 PlayStation 1 games. One of them I've always wanted because I hear it's actually pretty fun. And that is Cyber Tiger. Tiger Woods. But it's I think more of an arcadey version of your typical golf game from Electronic Arts. And if you look, it looks kind of silly. Everybody's kind of got weird proportions and stuff. So I hear good things. I like a good golf game every once in a while as a palate cleanser. So I decided to pick it up. And it was dirt cheap too. I think I paid $3 for this. Next up, I have what I found out as a sequel to an old Nintendo game. I think it was called Kid Clown. And this is The Bombing Islands. Never heard of this game before, but I'm looking at the character. And when I'm at the store, I'm looking at the front artwork and I see the character here. And I'm like, that looks super familiar. Where have I seen that character before? And then as I'm walking around the store looking at everything else, it kind of hits me. It's oh, isn't that Kid Clown or something? So I go back and I look and I'm like, oh, it's a puzzle game. And it looks just like Kid Clown, just now it's in 3D, where it's a puzzle action game where you have to move bombs around on these platforms and all that. And I've seen Kid Clown being played and that looked fun. So I was like, why not? And this was $5, so I wasn't going to pass it up. And plus, I'd never heard of it before, so why not? I love a good puzzle game as a palate cleanser also. But I saw this in their expensive games case, but it wasn't really that expensive. It was $20. And I remember hearing about this back in the day, but I never actually played it. It's called Danger Girl. I think this is based off of a comic book. I do believe. Yeah, I think it's based off of a comic book. But it's a third-person action game. But I've never played it. I mean, I've played it to make sure it worked, but I haven't actually sat down and played. And it looks pretty fun. It's kind of colorful. So I need to spend more time with it, but I was super thrilled to find something like this. Now I'm finding all the games that I kind of wanted back in the day, and I'm not finding them for bad prices, so I'm not complaining. I need to play some of that. I found this while I was there too, so I upgraded my upgrade. I ran out of room on my Xbox 360 shelving unit. So I'm sitting there looking at it going like, well, I've run out of room on my 361, but I have plenty of room on my PS3 shelving unit. I'm like, what are some of the games that I could trade and I can get on I can get rid of my 360 version and get the PS3 version instead and not feel bad about it. So like one of them was like the Force Unleashed games. I'm like, I'd rather actually play those on my PS3 because I've been playing my PS3 way more than my 360. So I got rid of my 360 version, picked up the PS3 version, and then I found this. I found the Ultimate Sith edition of the Force Unleashed, dirt cheap at my store. This was like $25, and it comes with all kinds of shit in there. I don't know if these codes are going to work anymore. I seriously doubt it. But, not only does it have the game, but it has like these like postcard-y looking things. I think they're collectible. So I got the Emperor, which says it's card 3 of 10. I have the Hoth Apprentice, which is card 8 out of 10. What do they want you to buy multiple copies of the same game to get all these cards or trade with your friends? But here's Ultimate Sith Edition collector's card. So there's a book full of what I guess is what's available. That's kind of cool. Darth Vader, The Apprentice, kind of stuff. So I got 2 of them. And then the manual itself. But I thought there was supposed to be like codes or something, unless it's already on the disc. That would be rad. If there wasn't a code. I don't see anything here. I gotta drop this into my PS3 and see what happens. But maybe it's already built into the game. I don't know. I'll find out though. But there's supposed to be like a whole bunch of extra stuff available. Yeah, more like armor and stuff like that. Whatever. But yeah, can't wait to try this out. I've been wanting to play this game over for a while now, and that gives me the perfect excuse to do it. Then we got the PS4, and this just showed up literally yesterday. Metal Gear Solid Collection, and all the codes still work. Nice. Yeah, it's a Blu-ray disc. Yeah, like there was just like at the time I bought them on the 360 because that was the version that I found. But like I was sitting there going, which ones would I rather have on the PS3? And I got rid of quite a bit of 360 games and got them dirt cheap, like Dead Space games and all that on the PS3. So I exchanged quite a bit. I made some room on my shelving unit. But I picked this one up for like $14 on Amazon. It's called Star Renegades, and it looks like a side-scrolling run-and-gun / Metroidvania type thing. So I've been into like these Metroidvania style games recently, so I wanted to pick this up because it sounded kind of interesting and it was dirt cheap. So I said, why not? So this just showed up yesterday, like I said. This showed up a couple of weeks ago. I pre-ordered this when it was first announced, and that is Grim Grimoire Once More. So it's a remake of Grim Grimoire, which is a Vanillaware game that came out on the PS2. Which I briefly played. I do have the PlayStation 2 version, but I briefly played to make sure it worked. I got it like dirt cheap at my half-price books that I used to go to all the time. And now they've released this remastered remake of it, and it looks pretty cool. I have not tried it out. It is still sealed. I don't know what's extra about it, but I'm sure I will find out. If I could read the stuff on here, I definitely would. Maybe, you know what? Maybe I can do my phone trick so I can read what's on here for y'all. Let me see. Lumos. There we go. This deluxe edition includes a digital soundtrack and softcover mini art book. So that's what's different about it? Okay. It looks really bright in here. Trust me, I say it every week. It is not. The camera is actually like compensating for probably the lack of light and brightening everything up. But it's like it is really dark in here, and I can barely read this stuff in this kind of light. So, Knox. Whatever. Turn off the flashlight. There we go. So I need to put some time aside for that. I think it's an action RPG. And then I found this at my retro shop, and I've been wanting this because I've seen a bunch of people on Twitter and all that talking about it. So I was interested because this is a 3D martial arts extravaganza style thing. And that is Sifu. I picked up the Vengeance Edition, and it's complete. It comes in this like oversized box. The game itself is in a steelbook case, which I love. Steelbook slut. And it has codes, which I will not show you, to get some stuff. The game itself says, "Is one life enough to know Kung Fu?" Yes, it is, sir. Also comes with, what is this? The Art of Sifu book. Plus these like art cards. I don't know what these are supposed to be. Do I have a double? I think I have a double. Okay. And probably production art or concept art. And then the book itself, which is pretty rad. And I hear the game itself is actually pretty cool. So when I saw it there, I snapped it up. Funny thing was, like, I walked past it and I was just kind of like, oh, yeah, that. And then I walked around the store some more. And I finally came back to it. Oh, there's supposed to be a soundtrack in here. Oh, that's what that code's for. Okay. Yeah, and I came back to it and someone else was looking at it. And I was like, oh, probably should have picked that up before this guy, took it. So I kind of like started to walk away, and I heard him put it back. And the moment I heard him put it back, I like looked over my shoulder and I saw him like walking away, and I ran over and grabbed it. And the last game I have to talk about today is the one that is the newest. It came out. It was just released last week, and it showed up, I do believe, on like Thursday. And that is R-Type Final 3 Evolved. R-Type was one of my favorite shmup franchises. And I have the original game on the PlayStation 2, and I have Final Part 2 on the PS2, the PS4, and now this one on the PS5. And I don't know what is final about it. Should I do the light trick again? Nah, just turn the flashlight on. The legendary side-scrolling shoot-'em-up series makes its way onto PS5. Updated in Unreal Engine 5, this version includes a Stage Pass 1 and 7 PS5 exclusive stages. I just realized I'm probably blinding you all with my light. This deluxe edition includes a 1-disc original soundtrack and soft cover art book inside. Shall we do an unboxing? I say so. Let's do it. Let's do it now. Come on. Come on, get in there. There you go. Whoop, whoop. So sure enough, there is this soft cover art book of R-Type Final 3 Evolved. Kind of rad. What's up, Peter? That's kind of cool. And it is a 2-disc set because one of them is the original soundtrack and the Evolved game itself. Yeah. I'll be definitely popping this into my computer tonight and ripping that. But I love the R-Type games. Like, I love the way the mechanics work with that, like, option thing in front of you that you can, like, throw across the stage and have destroy things. And then, like, as you move up and down and bring it back, it'll actually, like, follow your movements and destroy things. It's really, really cool. The weapons are great. The enemies are always, like, gigantic. It's awesome. I love it. Love it, love it, love it. So when I saw that there was a new one coming out, I jumped on it immediately and pre-ordered it. Absolutely thrilled to play. I want to play this. I might play some of it tonight, actually. Yeah. Another shitter in the night. What are you talking about? Oh, why don't you show me the codes? How will I get all the stuff? I have not played it yet. I haven't installed it yet. I need to. But I know about it from all the people that have been talking about it online. That guy put his grubby hands on your Sifu. Blinded by the light. Unboxing. Yeah, another shitter in the night. So yeah, I was gonna do this last night, but had stuff to take care of to get ready for my brother's wedding during this weekend. So, yep. I'm glad I was able to do it tonight. Like I said, this month was really light, which is why I talked so much at length about everything to kind of like, artificially lengthen the stream. Because like I said, half of the stuff that I had ordered in April hasn't shown up yet. There is a ton of stuff that's just like floating in the mail right now on the way towards me. So May is going to be a big month. May is going to be a huge month. There's going to be so much stuff. I'm getting so much stuff from so many places. It's going to be nuts. There's going to be some toys. There's definitely going to be a bunch of movies. There's going to be a bunch of games that I'm getting from a certain somebody, and it's going to be amazing. So definitely keep an eye out for that stream at the end of May. I'll be back this Thursday for the next and final PlayStation 2 Video Game Collection 2023 live stream. And after that one's over, next week I'll be jumping to another console to talk about, probably Game Boy Advance. So tune in for that, 8:30 p.m. Central. And also on my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/theoldassretrogamer, we're going to be streaming the next episode of my Dungeons & Dragons campaign, Tides of Flame, on Saturday. Let me get the date real quick because we had to change it. Saturday, May... Or I could just look at the texts because I never said I was smart. Let me see here. May 27th, Saturday, May 27th, we're going to stream Tides of Flame episode 5. It's me, the Game Grinder, Mundane Designs, and a bunch of my friends. And it's going to be awesome. It's going to be another long one. It'll probably be over 5 hours. We're probably going to start streaming around 7 p.m. Central. Or 6 p.m. Central is the way we're doing it. But keep an eye on the social media for the details on my Twitter, my Facebook page, and all that kind of stuff. I'm going to be posting about it there. So keep an eye out for that. But this week, Thursday, the new and final PlayStation 2 Video Game Collection 2023 live stream. So thank you, everybody, for coming and hanging out with me and chit-chatting. How do you guys stay awake? It's because there's a lot of stuff going on. So, like I said, thank you very much for hanging out with me tonight. I really appreciate each and every one of you. We'll talk to you hopefully on Thursday. So, see you later. Chris, the old-ass retro gamer, out. Stay safe, everybody. Have a good evening. See y'all back here on Thursday, or else it's gonna be some
emotional damage.
Yeah, said it.